Beijing just went quiet. 9 days, no aircraft, no fighter jets, no bombers over the Taiwan Strait, just silence. And in the Taiwan Strait, silence is more terrifying than any missile. Because the terrifying thing moving toward Taiwan right now is not a carrier, it is not a submarine, it is not a weapons system that any radar can track. It is a decision being made in a building in Beijing by a man who just watched America dismantle Iran's entire military in 72 hours and is now doing the math on whether he still wants to test us. Because what Beijing just decided to stop doing tells you more about where this is heading than anything Xi Jinping has said publicly in the last 3 years. But first, I need you to understand why every American watching this has a direct personal stake in what happens in that strait. Taiwan produces over 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. The chips in your phone, the chips in your car, the chips in the medical devices keeping people alive in American hospitals right now. If China moves on Taiwan and succeeds, the United States loses access to the most critical technology supply chain on Earth. This is not a foreign policy story. This is a story about the price of everything you buy for the rest of your life. And right now, the man making the decision that determines that price just went quiet. Here is why that matters. For months before that silence, China had been sending between 20 and 30 military aircraft into Taiwan's air defense identification zone every single day. Fighter jets, bombers, reconnaissance drones, day after day after day. A relentless, grinding drumbeat of military pressure, specifically designed to exhaust Taiwan's air force, drain its interceptor fuel, wear down its pilots, and signal to Taipei and Washington that Beijing controlled the tempo of events in those waters. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense had become almost routine about it. 26 aircraft today, 30 yesterday. The numbers were alarming, but they were predictable. And in military terms, predictable pressure is manageable pressure. Then the aircraft stopped. For 9 straight days, Taiwan's radar screens showed almost nothing. One day there were 2 aircraft, then silence again. The drumbeat that had defined the strait for months went completely dark, and military analysts across 3 continents immediately asked the same question: why? To understand why, you need to know what happened the day before Beijing went quiet, because the event that made those aircraft disappear was not a coincidence of timing. It happened the day before the United States launched the most devastating display of American military power since Desert Storm, in live combat conditions against a real enemy with the entire world watching. And I need you to understand exactly what Beijing's military planners were watching that day, because this is the part of the story that explains everything that followed. Iranian S-300 air defense batteries that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build, destroyed before they could fire a single interceptor. Underground bunkers, specifically engineered to survive American bombs, penetrated in a single pass. A naval force built over decades specifically to threaten and deter, sunk at its piers within 72 hours. Beijing was not watching a news broadcast. It was updating every assumption its military had made about what it actually costs to go up against the United States. And what it found made its aircraft disappear from Taiwan's radar the very next morning. China watched its regional partner dismantled in real time and said nothing, did nothing, because there was nothing useful to say. Here is the detail that no major American news network is connecting for you. China just announced its highest defense budget in history, a 7% increase, more money than ever flowing into the People's Liberation Army. And in that same period, China sent fewer aircraft toward Taiwan than at any point in the months before. Spending more, doing less. That gap between the budget and the behavior is not confusion. It is the sound of a government that just watched a live fire demonstration of what American power actually costs and is quietly, methodically redoing the math. Most channels will show you the budget number. We're showing you what the behavior means. Now here is the detail that most coverage has completely missed. Start with the purge. At China's most recent major legislative sessions, at least a dozen active and retired military officers were absent from their seats. Among them, one of the highest-ranking officials ever caught in the Xi anti-corruption campaign. We are not talking about a mid-level bureaucrat. We are talking about a man who sat on the Central Military Commission, the supreme body that commands China's entire nuclear and conventional force, the second most powerful military position in China, directly below Xi himself. The man Xi trusted most to command the force that would execute any Taiwan operation is now under investigation, gone. And he is not alone. Xi's military purges have reduced the Central Military Commission from 7 to 2. The entire top decision-making body of the world's largest military, hollowed out by one man's obsession with loyalty over competence. Russia's catastrophic failures in Ukraine appear to have caused Xi to prioritize political loyalty over military effectiveness. And that calculation has left him commanding an army whose actual readiness to cross 100 miles of open water toward Taiwan he himself cannot fully trust. And then there's the submarine. China's most important new nuclear vessel, the Type 09V guided missile boat, the biggest leap forward in Chinese undersea capability in a generation, is still not fully operational, still preparing to launch, still not in the water where it needs to be. And every week it remains undeployed. American Seawolf-class submarines, already confirmed operating in the Indo-Pacific, own the deep water around Taiwan, uncontested. A submarine that cannot yet dive, cannot protect a surface fleet crossing open water. And a surface fleet crossing open water without submarine cover is not an invasion, it is a target. I have reported to Taipei 3 times. I have sat with Taiwanese defense officials in quiet government offices, maps on the walls, the Strait visible from the window, and spoken with people who have lived under this threat their entire adult lives and have stopped being surprised by it. What they told me every single time is the same thing. They do not fear the loud moments, the missile tests, the encirclement drills, the fighter jets on the radar. They fear the quiet moments. Because the quiet moments are when Beijing is deciding something, not announcing, deciding. Taiwan's Coast Guard confirmed recently in plain language that there is no question China is practicing to encircle and fully blockade the island. The rehearsals are real. The capability is being built. The question keeping Taiwanese defense officials awake at 3 in the morning is not whether Xi Jinping can do it. The question is whether Xi Jinping has decided the cost is bearable. And right now, watching a man who has just purged his own generals, whose most important nuclear submarine is not yet in the water, whose regional partner was dismantled in 72 hours by the same force that would respond to a Taiwan move, the answer to that question appears to be shifting, not permanently, not irreversibly, but noticeably. There was a moment during China's most recent large-scale encirclement drills that tells you exactly where China's confidence actually stands. One Chinese destroyer reportedly withdrew only after a Taiwanese naval vessel applied a radar lock on it. A radar lock is the last electronic signal before a weapons release, and a Chinese destroyer turned around. That is not the behavior of a navy that is ready to force passage through a defended strait. That is the behavior of a navy that knows it is being watched by systems more capable than what Taiwan alone is operating. A senior analyst at one of the world's most respected conflict monitoring organizations said something this week that I want you to sit with. Beijing's posture shows, and I am quoting exactly, growing determination to accelerate preparation for unification through increasingly coercive means in the coming years. Coming years. Not this week, not this month. Coming years. That is the blink. Not a surrender, not a retreat, a recalculation. A man who thought he understood the cost of moving against Taiwan watched a live demonstration of what that cost actually looks like and went quiet to do the math again.
The terrifying thing moving toward Taiwan is not a carrier. It is not a missile. It is a decision.
These decisions are being made in a building in Beijing by a man who has just watched what America does when it decides to act, who purged his own generals, whose navy turned around from a radar lock, whose most important submarine is not yet in the water, and who is now deciding, quietly, methodically, updating his spreadsheet, whether the calculation still works. So tell me, does America's military demonstration increase deterrence in the Taiwan Strait, or does it simply buy time before an even more dangerous confrontation? And do you think Xi's recalculation makes Taiwan safer in the next 2 years, or more vulnerable? Drop your answer below. If you believe Americans deserve the full picture, not the surface-level version, subscribe to the Iron Atlas, because the next inflection point in this story is coming, faster than most people expect, and we will be here when it happens.